Hey everybody, Mike Naso here from IPR and podweather.com with the latest on the tropics, and we do have a new tropical storm out there. This is Tropical Storm Faye, and it's centered right over the eastern part of Hispaniola, not a good place for a developing tropical storm, and it's moving west. And there is a lot of uncertainty in the track and intensity and the whole future regarding Faye, and we'll talk about it. We also have this low pressure out here, 93L, the invest we've tracked, is come back, and it could become a system, maybe even a hurricane based on some of the models, and continue generally in the direction south of Bermuda and north of the Bahamas. And some models even show a little bit of a westward turn with this, so we're going to have to keep an eye on this one as well. Let's start with Faye, though. As of 5 p.m. Eastern Time, it was at 18.5 north, 69.4 west. Winds were up to 40 miles an hour, so it's a minimal tropical storm, gusting to 50. It's moving west at 13, 14 miles an hour, and that pressure is 1,008 millibars, and it is centered overland, and we do have those tropical storm watches and warnings out, all from Cuba and Haiti and the Bahamas, because that is the general area where Faye will be headed the next several days. Now, when we look at the track forecast, later tonight and early tomorrow should exit Haiti and move over water. But given how ragged it is and given how close it's going to be to Cuba, we shouldn't see any significant strengthening. And then it should come ashore later tomorrow night, early Sunday in Cuba, and spend Sunday night over Cuba, and then start to move and exit sometime Monday afternoon into the Florida Straits. Between Monday afternoon and Tuesday afternoon, it should quickly intensify over the very favorable warm waters and make landfall. Now, the exact landfall point, which currently at this time is around Tuesday afternoon in southwest Florida, say near Fort Myers, Charlotte Harbor region, that is not important because the cone could be as far north as the Carolinas and the Bahamas, or as far south as Jamaica, western Cuba, and the North Gulf Coast. And that's because of the model spread, which I'll show you in a minute. But definitely, if you're in Florida and Cuba and the Bahamas and really anywhere within this cone, start to overlook your hurricane plans because Faye means business. You can see it means business on Hispaniola right now, bursting on those visible cloud tops. Again, the center of circulation right in there and centered there over the extreme eastern part of the island. And again, if it moves straight west, it's going to be over those mountains for a good deal. The only negative factor towards not having it weaken, the bad news is that since it's still in the formative stages, it might be able to kind of hold on to that weak, ill-defined look for the next couple of days as it traverses land and not really get going until the Gulf. If it were a strong hurricane, say like Hurricane David in 1979, that made landfall as a Cat 5, weakened to a tropical storm. That Hispaniola here has saved the United States from so many powerful hurricanes, it's not even funny. But this is not a powerful hurricane yet, which means it could stay ragged as long as it's over land because it already is ragged. You can see the rainfall on the radar here out of Puerto Rico. Again, you see that turning in here. This is not the center. The center is off here and over Hispaniola. Hispaniola is not on this map, but again, it's the center is off the screen, but you can still see the heavy rainfall. And keep in mind, in a place like Hispaniola, this type of rainfall, even from a weak tropical system like this, could cause life-threatening flooding. And we lost 3,000 people 4 years ago in Hurricane Jeanne when it came in this same region. Now, here's the upper-level winds, and you can see, for those who aren't, knowledgeable in a wind shear pattern chart, just to kind of put in layman terms for you, you could see 5 knots of wind shear. That's winds blowing over the cloud tops that are building up. That's very light, which means winds are favorable for continued development. And you can see the whole pattern here, this ventilation, this high pressure right over the top, the clockwise flow, helping to ventilate the counterclockwise circulation of Faye. Very favorable. It's going to carry this environment along with it. The problem is land is in the way. So if this thing even sneaks over water, whether that's in the Bahamas or whether that's here in the Caribbean, it's going to have time to strengthen, at least the fuel to strengthen. Whether or not it has the time depends on if it hits land right away after exiting. Again, the water is very warm. Hurricane Dennis 3 years ago in July of 2005 went from a Category 1 to a Category 4 just in this small region. Now, that already had an eye and an eye wall, which allowed it to quickly strengthen. given that Faye's ill-defined and is going to move out and then move right back into Cuba, there shouldn't be too much strengthening, but again, it's unknown, and it's unknown if it moves further south or further north. A lot of uncertainty with this one. Certainly waters off the Keys here, very, very warm for quick intensification, and the Hurricane Center said it could well be a hurricane by the time it reaches southwest Florida, and if it spends any more time over water, it could certainly become a hurricane or even a stronger hurricane. Now here's the model guidance, and you can see here's the model plots. We have the GFDL model taking this system up here towards Panama City, Florida in 5-6 days after kind of jaunting off to the south and coming just north of Jamaica and then hitting the Isle of Youth in western Cuba. If it took that track, it would be over water for a very long time to be able to strengthen into a strong hurricane, as that model shows. However, the UK Met also takes it over this region, but kind of keeps it closer to land in the first 48 hours before taking it into the Gulf, heading it towards the North Gulf Coast. The Canadians in the Big Bend region here, which, by the way, it is rare to have a hurricane hit the Big Bend area. It does happen, but it is rare. And just many, many other models here. The H-Wharf taking it straight up into the northern upper Florida Keys, southeast coast of Florida here. And again, there's a lot of uncertainty because if it takes a track like the GFDL, it's over the Caribbean waters, very favorable. It could become a strong hurricane even before it hits Cuba, and then be a strong, powerful hurricane all the way to the Gulf Coast. With the UK Met, it's weak for the first few days, then it could strengthen into a hurricane, and then a stronger hurricane in the Gulf. However, if it follows, say, what the H-Wharf is showing here, it's over land the next several days, and maybe has a chance to strengthen just a little bit in this little time it has over the Florida Straits. So depending on the track is where we'll see that intensity go up or down. So there is a lot of uncertainty, but definitely over land or near land the next few days, and then generally towards Florida. Now here's another look at it from afar, and again, this is a very impressive looking minimal tropical storm. It has been impressive the last few days, but there was no surface circulation. It wasn't closed off, and the Air Force could not find that the last several days, so there was no upgrade, but it is upgraded now, sitting right here. Tropical Storm Faye moving west, expected to bend northward and take a track like that, but it could be anywhere within this region. Watches and warnings are already out. Be on the lookout for heavy rainfall in Hispaniola in the next 12 to 24 hours. Now beyond that, we have our Invest 93Ls back from the dead, and it's sitting here, and the models are showing it moving in that direction. You can see it here on the model plot. Some make it a hurricane again, and note here at the end how some are kind of bending it a little bit back to the west. There is potential that if the ridging builds back in and we have that high pressure, things could get interesting if this gets pushed back west. But again, it's too early to say whether or not that'll happen. We need to get a system first. Further out beyond that, we have another tropical wave out here, looking rather meager, but it is a wave and it is August, so we need to watch it. In the eastern Pacific, we have Isel, Tropical Storm Isel. It's stationary, nearly stationary, but it's very weak, 40 miles an hour, 1,004 millibars. It's going to be a depression in the next 5 days, slowly head on west. It shouldn't be an issue. You can see it there, not looking all that well. Compared to Faye, it doesn't look good at all, and both are the same intensity, so that goes to show Faye is a more potent system with a future for intensification. In the western Pacific, we have Tropical Depression 11W. It's here moving north of the western areas of Japan, not going to have to deal with it. And you can see it there. It's very, very weak and ill-defined. But what's this right here? This looks a bit more interesting. This is Tropical Storm Vonphon, and winds are 50 miles an hour, gusting to 65. It's moving east-northeast at 19, pulling on out of there. Should not become a typhoon, but certainly some impressive convection with Vonphon at this time. I'm Mike Naso from Internet Partnership Radio. Stay tuned. We'll have the latest on Faye at podweather.com with more video updates the next several days as we all wait and see where Faye will go and how strong she'll get.